Hey everybody, doing another look at some of my comics. If you've never seen these clips before, as the story goes, my old long box got ruined in a leak in the attic. Fortunately, the comics survived, so I put them in this bin. And before I get into the long box, I'm kind of cataloging, and I thought this would be a fun way to share. If you're a comics fan, this is a great way to reminisce about old comics. If you're wanting to get in collecting, these are fun ones you can probably find now. But like I said, we'll just do a couple of about 3 or 4. Here we go. Batman 497 Nightfall Part 11. If you guys are comics fan, especially Batman fans, Nightfall Part 11 497 is a very iconic moment in Batman history. This is the culmination of Bane's big gambit on, or big plan on Batman. Probably the greatest moment for Bane, although they've tried to give him other stuff over these. This is it. Iconic cover done by Kelly Jones. As you can see, Bane is shattering Batman's back. This is, of course, shown a little bit in the Dark Knight Rises, though not near as kind of interesting. Although we get the basically the gist of this of Nightfall was in Nightfall Part 1. Bane unleashes all of the villains out of Arkham Asylum, so Batman has to go on basically a murderer's row of all of his arch villains, all in the span of a few days to get them all, because he's like, you can't let the Joker, the Scarecrow, even like guys like Maxie Zeus out, and they do a number throughout this, and it's revealed Bruce has developed chronic fatigue syndrome. And when you finally and this issue begins with him arriving, and Bane's already in the cave. Batman's by himself. Alfred's been knocked out. Tim Drake's nowhere to be found. I can't remember. There was a reason he wasn't there at the moment. John Paul Valley, who's about to take over for the role, is not there also. And Batman, extremely exhausted, extremely broken down, fights Bane, who's venomed up out of and just pummels him and then shatters his back. So. And I also like these little details, like in the back you see the dinosaur, the robot dinosaur from that famous Batman story, and of course the giant penny from that famous Two-Face story. Both, always, iconic. If you're gonna do the Batcave, you gotta have them in the background. So, but yeah, great cover, just terrifying, and it's the cover is basically what you see at the very end. It's kind of weird, like ultimate spoiler, but hey, 497, pretty ironic or iconic too. Ironic because this is Bane's really greatest arc. They gave him a few over the years, like recently he's been where he's kind of come back. They've had him sometimes be good, sometimes be bad, but reality, Bane's never. This is his famous greatest moment, and ironically in his earliest runs. So, all right, what we got here? Avengers 369, Blood Ties Part 5 of 5. It's one of those gimmick covers you see here. Exodus, Quicksilver, and Crystal. Explain what's going on with this arc is interesting. It's an Avengers X-Men team up over Genosha. Deals with a lot of stuff involving Magneto's past, and of course Quicksilver being his son, Crystal being his. I guess at the time they were still technically married, and they had a daughter, Luna, and just a whole bunch of them dealing with some leftover plot lines that have been kind of floating around for both Avengers and X-Men. There was always this time period toward the end of the year they would have some big crossover event. Usually X-Men books will all cross over the other, or Avengers arcs will all cross over the other. This time they decided to have X-Men and Avengers books cross over together, and it was just a 1 month arc. All the issues were within like 1 month, I think. And it was a great way for him to close off the end of West Coast Avengers. It got canceled after this, and this was kind of a big kind of reset for how the Avengers were going to go. All right, last one. But I love this, but anybody old 80s video game remember Konami? This is, of course, a great ad for Konami games like Super C. All right. Return of the Sinister Six Part 3 of 6. Amazing Spider-Man 3 36, early August, that's right, early, because they were bi-weekly back then. Larson draws this, Bob Wycheck inks, and it involves the death of someone. This actually turns out to be Nathan, who is Aunt May's fiance. I can't remember if they were engaged or they were just living together, but yeah, he was a sick old man. He's a bad gambler. And in this issue he'd made a bet on a mob hit he'd heard about. Turned out the mob hit involved the Vulture, and this plotline actually gets referenced quite a lot. The Vulture gets involved, and in the process, trying to save Aunt May, who almost gets killed by the Vulture. Nathan has a heart attack trying to fight him himself. As Spider-Man trying to deal with all of this going on. Great Eric Larson art again. Good use of how, like, I love the lines, the facial. You know, we can see kind of how creaky and cranky the Vulture is. I kind of think the Vulture. This is more how the Vulture is kind of depicted more during the, I guess you'd say, Homecoming era with Michael Keaton playing him. Although, you know, and Michael Keaton's the proper age, although he's not quite near as cranky looking. But you get the idea. This is a man who's should be retired but doing crime, because that's just kind of the card he chose. All right, last one. I decided to do one more. Oh, Spawn number 7. Another iconic Todd McFarlane cover. Spawn, at this point, I believe he's fighting Overlord, which is kind of a random villain. Instead of using his powers, because Spawn still hasn't figured out how to really use his powers that well, he breaks into a place, gets a bunch of guns, and has this big old military shoot him up. And this is definitely a classic Spawn moment. You know, you got him with all of his gear, with some big old guns. This is very straight out of it. You could not scream 1992 comics more than Spawn number 7. All right. Hope you enjoy that. If you like these comics or have some memories of them or have more questions, please feel free to like, comment, and share.